Namaskar. Today I, Shatarupa Mishra, Joint Director Publicity, Directorate of Public Relations, Publications and Publicity, CBDT, New Delhi, welcome you to yet another episode in this special Samvaad series on the new income tax forms. Committed to enhancing the ease of compliance for taxpayers and streamlining processes, the Income Tax Department has introduced as part of this endeavor new and simplified forms under the income tax rules, which would be operative from 1st April 2026 onwards. The simplified forms will benefit taxpayers, deductors, and the department alike, fostering a more efficient and compliant tax ecosystem. Though all forms have undergone the above mentioned changes, for the purpose of this taxpayer information series, we have taken the forms that have been found to be either the most frequently used or the forms which have undergone business process re-engineering. In this episode, we shall be discussing the form which is mainly used for declaration filed by any person or entity responsible for making a payment to a non-resident not being a company or to a foreign company before remitting funds outside India. On an average, around 44 to 45 lakh forms have been filed each financial year over the past 5 financial years. Now, under the new framework of the Income Tax Rules 2026, this form has been simplified to ease compliance for the filers. To explain the changes that have been made in this form, we have with us here today Dr. Anjula Jain, IRS, presently posted as Commissioner of Income Tax, International Taxation in New Delhi. She is an officer of the Indian Revenue Service Income Tax Department of the 2003 batch, having experience of more than 22 years across many verticals. Madam was part of the drafting committee of the Income Tax Rules 2026 with regard to the changes pertaining to international taxation. We welcome you, ma'am, to this episode of Samvaad.
Thank you. Thank you, Shatarupa.
Ma'am, to begin with, can you please explain our viewers what this form is all about?
Shatarupa, basically this form is a self-declaration which is filed by any person who is making payments outside India.
Ma'am, who should file this form?
This is a very good question. In fact, every person or entity who is responsible for making a payment to a non-resident person or a foreign company is required to file this form before making the payment.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, this brings me to my next question, that is anyone exempt from filing this form?
This is another very good question. Not everyone is required to file this form. In fact, 3 categories of persons are exempt from filing this form. The first category are the individuals who are remitting funds under the liberalized remittance scheme of the Government of India. The second category of persons are the units which are situated in the International Financial Services Center. And the third category is the persons who are making payments under the specified codes which have been specified by the RBI.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you tell our viewers that why filing this form is so important?
Filing this form is very important because it affects, in fact, almost most of the persons in India. In fact, as we have already told our viewers, that around 44 to 45 lakh forms are filed every year. This form is to be filed whenever any remittance is made outside India. And secondly, this form is integrated with the ITBA system of the Income Tax Department, meaning thereby it is cross-verified with other forms and other compliances by the authorized dealers like Form No.15CA and the accountant certificate like in Form No.15CB. And secondly, in case of non-filing or in case of wrong reporting of various particulars or various details in these forms, appropriate action may be taken by the department as per the provisions of the Income Tax Act.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what are the consequences of non-reporting or filing inaccurate information, as you just mentioned, ma'am? What are the consequences under the Act?
Okay, it is very important whenever we making any payment outside India, before that Form No.15CA should be filed. Otherwise, the authorized dealers without Form No.15CA, they will not remit fund outside India. And it is also important to file the accurate particulars. In case either the Form No.15CA this form is not filed, or the particulars are not correct, then penalty of rupees 1 lakh can be imposed.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you explain what is the structure of this form?
This form, it has 4 parts basically, and depending on the nature of remittance, their taxability and the amount involved, the different part is to be filled up. It has part A, part B, part C and part D. Part A is to be filled up if the remittance is up to rupees 5 lakhs and it is taxable in India. Part B is to be filled up if the remittance is more than 5 lakhs and it is taxable in India. And the certificate has been obtained by the payer, the remitter, from the assessing officer. When a taxpayer, a person goes to the assessing officer for certificate, that will be your next question.
Yeah.
Basically, in case, suppose as per the provisions of the act, the suppose tax rate is 20%, but in case I feel the tax deduction rate should be 5% or should be nil, then a certificate should be obtained from the assessing officer in case you are not deducting tax as per the applicable rates of the Income Tax Act. So therefore, then you have to go to the assessing officer to obtain the certificate. Then coming to the other parts, part C. Part C is to be filled up when the remittance is exceeds 5 lakhs, it is chargeable to tax and the certificate from the accountant has been obtained. And part D is to be filled up whenever the remittances are not chargeable to tax in India. Meaning thereby, in all the cases, in all the of remittances, that form number 15CA is to be filed except the 3 categories which I have already explained, which are exempt from filing form number 15CA.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for explaining so elaborately the different parts or the structure of this form. Now, ma'am, I am sure our viewers would like to know that what are the documents that have to be deposited while filing this new form?
While filing this new form, in fact, no document as such is required to be deposited or attached because this form is filed online. These documents should be handy because you have to fill up various particulars while filing these forms. Basically, you have to know the payer details, the pay, the remittee details, the details of the funds which are being paid, the bank details of the remitter. And in case you are filing part B, then the assessing officer certificate, the certificate issued by the AO you should have. In case you are filing part C, then you need the chartered accountant certificate.
Right.
So these are the various documents. In case you are availing benefit under double taxation avoidance agreements, DTAs,
Yes,
then you have to have tax residency certificate and other relevant documents. So depending on the part and depending on the nature of remittances, the documents they vary.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, is modification or editing of the form possible after submission?
No, once the form has been submitted and e-verified, after submission, after that one has to e-verify using either e-verification code or using digital signature.
Right,
Once the form has been successfully submitted and the acknowledgement number has been generated, then it's not possible to either modify or edit that form. However, it can be withdrawn within 7 days from the date of submission. And then the person can again refile it after withdrawing that form.
Of course, ma'am. Ma'am, this brings me to my next question. I'm sure this is a doubt in the mind of all viewers also, that will withdrawing this form also lead to withdrawal of the linked accountant certificate?
This is a very good question because while we are the person is filing part C, then first that person has to obtain accountant certificate.
Right.
And this accountant certificate is also filed online by the chartered accountant. And once the taxpayer files part C, that the status of that accountant certificate is shown as consumed. Fine. And once once the taxpayer withdraws the part C, then the linked part of accountant certificate is also withdrawn and the status is shown as withdrawn and it cannot be used again. Again, in case the taxpayer wants to file part C again, then he has to again obtain the chartered accountant certificate.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, can you tell our viewers as to what are the new features in this form and how this will benefit all stakeholders?
This is a very good question. Basically, we have introduced 3 new features in this form. First is the addition of UDIN field. UDIN is Unique Document Identification Number. Earlier, many instances were recorded of fraudulent transfer of funds outside India based on fake 15 of a form accountant certificate and consequently fake form. Now, with the introduction of UDIN field, the authenticity of the accountant certificate as well as this form can be verified by the taxpayer or any user using the API link on the ICAI portal, and this is a real-time verification. Therefore, the fraudulent transfer of funds now henceforth using fake certificates, accountant certificate or this form will not be possible. This is the first feature, key feature, addition of UDIN field. And the second thing is key earlier in both in part B and part C of this form, that the person was required to file AO certificate details. Now in part C, the AO certificate details have been done away with. Meaning thereby, now in case the person has obtained assessing officer certificate, then he or she need not obtain chartered accountant certificate and need not file part C. And this clarification has also been issued that in case assessing officer certificate has been obtained and the taxable remittances are more than 5 lakhs, then there is no need to obtain chartered accountant certificate. Earlier, the taxpayers or the person who was making payment, they were obtaining both AO certificate also and the chartered accountant certificate also. So therefore, there is a decreased burden, tax compliance burden on the taxpayer. Thirdly, as of now, after filing form number 15C, this form on e-filing portal, a person who was making payment has to take out the printout, and that was required to be physically submitted to the authorized dealer. Right. Now it has been the electronic transmission has also been enabled. So now the person can transfer this form to the authorized dealer electronically. Right. So that's why the physical submission of the form is not mandatory now. So this makes the compliance easier for the person who is making the payment. He need not physically visit the authorized dealer. Thus, to summarize, there are 3 key features. One is the addition of UDIN field to prevent the fraudulent transfer of funds. Second is the removal of AO certificate details from Part C, thereby the taxpayer who is obtaining AO certificate, assessing officer certificate, need not obtain chartered accountant certificate again. And 3, now this form can be submitted to the authorized dealer through electronic means also.
Thank you, ma'am, for elaborating on the key features of the form, ma'am. Ma'am, you mentioned about UDIN. What is this UDIN and why is it so important?
Shatarupa, UDIN is basically Unique Document Identification Number. This is an 18-digit alphanumeric unique number which is generated through system on the ICAI portal. As per the ICAI guidelines, now it is mandatory for every accountant to have a UDIN number before issuing any certificate. Therefore, any accountant who issues certificate, that certificate should have UDIN, and that UDIN can be verified on real-time basis on the ICAI portal through API link. And this certificate, which is issued by the accountant, is used by the taxpayer in filing Part C of the form. So that's why this UDIN is important, because it will again, as I have already elaborated earlier, it will prevent fraudulent transfer of funds outside India using fake form, accountant certificate and form 15, this form.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for elaborating for the benefit of our viewers this features of this very important form, why this is important and who should be filing it. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us here today in this episode of Samvaad. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Shatarupa. Thank you so much.